Welcome. I'm doing a mic test. If you are on, can you wave your hand if you can hear me? Okay, we have, can you hear me online?
Hello, are you
Yes.
able to hear someone? Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, Airport Advisory Committee members and guests. It is June 18th, 2025 at noon, and I am calling this meeting to order. Team EUG is committed to creating a welcoming and safe community for everyone in a place where every person can experience a sense of belonging. The Airport Advisory Committee is committed to maintaining a respectful environment for all committee members and guests. I would like to start by asking guests at today's meetings to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Jordan, Business and Innovation for Eugene Airport.
Regina, AP.
Hello, Mariah Mulcahy, Project Management and Environmental Compliance for the airport.
Hi, I'm Kay Alves Stubenberg, Airport Engineer.
Jordan with Airport
Rohini Singh for
Facilities.
GAT. Rohini with GAT.
Don Wilson, TSA.
Odette OP, Finance Manager for Eugene Airport.
Jody McNatt, Airport Operations Manager.
Robert Bruni, Airfield Manager.
Devin Sherrill, Landside Operations Manager.
Dean Inouye, TSA. Mark Fromuth, Evelo out of Eugene.
Laura Avello out of Eugene.
Rodney with Sky Harbor Aviation.
I'm Sue Pileggi, and I'm here for Avello out of Eugene.
Rob Facette, Avello out of Eugene.
Guests or public?
Sean Cole, Atlantic Aviation.
And we have somebody by the name of Debbie online.
Okay. Second. Okay. Okay, the purpose of this committee is to develop recommendations for city staff by providing an ongoing citizen perspective and review of the airport activity report, airport capital improvement program, airport enterprise fund budgeting process, and changes to the airport administration policy. As stated in the committee bylaws, members have the obligation to consider the welfare of the entire city and to be fair, objective, and courteous. We have established the following meeting decorum guidelines to ensure a cohesive and equitable environment for committee members and guests. Guests attending the meeting in person and online are asked to sign in and introduce themselves when asked. Public comment at today's start of each meeting has a limit of 10 minutes unless a majority of committee members present vote to extend the time. The presiding office shall establish a time limit for each speaker and may limit the number of speakers. With that, we are limiting the speakers to 3 minutes each, and we will go into public comment. We have 3 speakers on the list unless anybody else has joined. The first one is Mark. And 3-minute timer, Randy will be giving you the sign when 3 minutes is up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name is Mark Fromuth. My message is about 1.5 minutes long. I'm a citizen of the U.S. and a resident of Eugene. I'm here today to voice my opposition to Avelo Airlines, which operates here out of Eugene, and Avelo's active participation in the deportation of immigrants. This inhumane deportation makes Avelo Airlines deeply involved in a system that criminalizes and dehumanizes immigrants. These deportations specifically go against City of Eugene's City Code 2.495, which states, city resources, including money, equipment, or personnel, shall not be used to detect or apprehend individuals whose only violation is being present in the U.S. without authorization. These deportations further go against the airport's own values, which include, quote, integrity. We align our conduct with what we know to be excellent, always seeking to reflect ethical standards and to do the right thing regardless of the circumstances, close quote. Avelo Airlines does not yet operate deportation flights out of Eugene. Not yet. However, they are a significant part of the corporation that does. I respectfully call on the Eugene Airport Advisory Committee and airport leadership to condemn this practice and call on Avelo to stop deportations immediately. We as Eugenians, Oregonians, and citizens are better than this. Let's all take a stand and go to the right side of history. Thank you.
This person, I'd just like to let the speakers know that Catherine will provide information on the airport's regulatory regulations following the comment period. And so if you'd like to stay and listen to that, you are welcome to do so. The next up is Laura.
Hello, my name's Laura. I've lived in Lane County for well over 40 years, and while the convenience and the affordability of Avelo's direct flights to Burbank appeal to my family, we will not be flying Avelo to visit my son and his family who live in LA. Avelo's collaboration with ICE to fly deportation flights is unacceptable. I'm not here to solve the issues of the contract Eugene Airport has signed with Avelo. I'm here to ask for a clear response to their human rights violations. Their practices are unsafe, inhumane, and illegal. They violate the ethics of the city, county, state, and even the airport. Silence won't shield Eugene, Springfield, or Oregon from the abuse of federal funding being used as a tool to pressure our community to go along with normalizing cruelty. What I'm asking you to do is make a statement about Avelo's contract with ICE, that it troubles you or that deportees have rights to due process. Check out whether their practices violate sanctuary laws in the city, county, and state. Open an investigation into this. This may well constitute a breach of contract with the airport's own code and the program to work against human trafficking, the Blue Lightning Initiative, in which the Eugene Airport participates. Most of these folks are pursuing paths to citizenship through legal avenues. We owe it to them and to ourselves to stand up for their rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Next up is Rob.
Hello, is that on? Okay, great. I want to appreciate you all being here today. I look forward to this regulation update. Okay, later on. I also appreciated the rereading or the reference to the mission and belonging statement at the beginning of the meeting, and I think that's really important. Part of it talks about doing the right thing even when it's hard, and it can be hard to even be vocal about something in the position that you all are in. But nonetheless, I think that it's the right thing to do, and that you should be internalizing that mission and belonging statement as you consider whether or not to do it. Because on this paper is talking a lot about not being able to ban an airline from the airport, and I can appreciate that. But I've also been getting a lot of responses from the city and other places, which you can advise to do something differently, that there's actually nothing that can be done about Avelo Airlines. And the fact that they're participating in human trafficking, I mean, running flights where people are chained to their seats and shackled to their seats and to one another, with the clear understanding that if anything happens on the flight, that the crew is just going to leave and those people are all going to be stuck. This is an explicit policy, and I would certainly hesitate to offer a home or not say anything if an airline participating in those types of safety violations was running out of my airport. And that's why I'm here. So I think for one thing, definitely, this board can put out a statement. This board can recommend that the city put out a statement condemning this practice. All of you are business leaders and other things in the community. Those businesses and in your capacity as those things, you can put out statements and make Avelo unwelcome in all of those spaces. And I would just say that there's a tendency to think that it's possible to, quote unquote, stay out of politics. We don't do politics here. That's just not what this is for. This is like a non-political airport advisory committee. But I would say that any decision that we make in these spaces, they're all politics, right? Whether you choose to say something or not is politics. It's just that when you choose to do nothing, it's a politics in support of whatever is happening if you're not speaking out against it. And so I would respectfully request that you take this all into consideration and issue a strong statement and advise the city and advise the airport directors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. We are at time, but there are two more speakers, and with the approval of the board of the advisory committee, I'd like to go ahead and let them speak. Okay, next up would be Abby.
you. Sorry. A little short here, so. Can you all hear me? Is that good? Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Abby Gershenson. I'm a 30-year resident here in Eugene, and I am proud of the place I live in. And what I have seen over my years of living here is that when our governing bodies have information, we make good decisions. So I'm here also to request that our airport ends their relationship with Avelo until such time as Avelo ends its contract for deportation flights with Department of Homeland Security. You may not have read, but some of the flight attendants that have been trained for these flights were trained, and this was not Avelo, this was a interview I read with another Air ICE contracted airline. They were told that they were going to be doing flights to for elite sports events nationally and internationally, and they were trained with all the safety. And then when they did their first flight and they saw, as you've had described to you, and I know this from, I've been volunteering with asylum seekers now since 2018. So they have a shackle at the waist. They have 2 chains that go from that waist to handcuffs, and they have 2 chains that go down to their ankles with shackles at the ankles. So when they saw that, and they saw that there was no way that they could uphold safety regulations, and they were being told that they couldn't help their children on these flights, that they could not help them if they were feeling ill. Some of them have left, but that's the situation. Avelo has contracted to do that. I want you to picture that. Do we want to be involved with that? Then I wanted to also re-mention, if a flight goes down, there are 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 DHS agents who have the keys on that flight. Are they going to have time to open all of those shackles? No way. So the other thing I wanted to mention that has been mentioned, and this is a little bit of an explanation of a lead-in, who is on these flights? So right now, ICE is arresting, detaining, and deporting some illegal and undocumented immigrants, but they are mostly asylum seekers. I work with them. I know why, because asylum seekers crossed the border legally, requested asylum, gave their addresses and continue to give their addresses to DHS or ICE, and they have a court, they have a process, they have attorneys, and ICE can call them in any time, and they have to come. If they don't come, oh, okay. And if they don't come, then they can be deported. So what I wanted to say is for ICE, it's very easy, and that's what they're doing right now. They're calling these people in, they're detaining them. I just came back from New York, I'm sorry. I wanted to give you specific examples of some of the people I work with, but I won't. But I want you to picture that these are people here who are legal,
Thank you.
and thank you so much for considering this.
Okay, Neil, you're the last speaker, and if you could keep it short, that would be appreciated.
Good afternoon. I'm a relatively new resident in Eugene. I came from the San Francisco Bay Area, where I was a family therapist for over 30 years. I'd like to thank the board on the great job they do on technical issues. As a result of the airport running so smoothly, I get to visit family in Florida and long-term friends in the Bay Area fairly frequently. I agree with everything that has been said by the previous speakers in terms of the ugly practices that are taking place. And in the same way that during the Vietnam War, Dow Chemical was making some fine products to be used for gardens, they were also making napalm. Anybody of my generation has seen that gut-wrenching picture of a small Vietnamese girl running in terror with because she was bombed with napalm. As a result of that, people of decency put out a campaign against Dow Chemical that while some of their products may be fine. If they are involved in such insidious activities, the way we show our protest is by boycotting them and giving them a clear message. This is immoral and a shocking disregard of human decency. While the particular Avelo airline in Eugene, as far as I could tell, is not doing these flights, they are part of the larger agency. And as President Kennedy put in his book long time ago, this is a time for profiles and courage. Thank you for your consideration.
Is there anybody online who was hoping to make a statement? Okay, we do have one person. If you could keep it to 2 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Yes, my name is Heather Scott. I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice. I'm a psychologist and a mother. I've lived in Eugene for over 30 years. And I agree with what others have said. I unfortunately, had difficulty logging in, but I strongly agree with what others have said. I feel sick to my stomach that about these flights, people being kidnapped, basically no due process, no regard for human rights. These are families, children in our communities, and I just think it's morally wrong to for us to be doing business with Flight, a company that is contracting with ICE and allowing these practices to occur. So I just want to add that in agreement with what others have said. I just feel very strongly about this and want to support folks, because I think if these were our family members, we would be doing more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Catherine Stevens, Airport Director.
All right, thank you, Natalie, and thank you for everyone who came and made your public comment today. I very strongly support public comment, so I appreciate you being here and sharing that. I am a City of Eugene employee, and I am not able to make political statements in my capacity as a public employee. I want to make that very clear. I would like to read into the record the fact sheet that was provided to Mayor and Council, and then I've sent it on to you as well, just so everyone has the same information. And if you've got questions after, we can do that as well. So the Eugene Airport is bound by federal laws and funding agreements which limit its authority to restrict airline access to the airport. Under federal law and regulations administered by the Department of Transportation and Federal Aviation Administration, publicly funded commercial airports are prohibited from banning certified air carriers from operating at their facilities. So the regulation of the Eugene Airport is the Federal Aviation Administration, which regulates the use of U.S. airspace and ensures the safety, efficiency, and fairness of civil aviation nationwide. The U.S. Department of Transportation, which oversees compliance with federal transportation policies and enforces airline access rights. The City of Eugene and Eugene Airport Administration, we operate EUG, and we're responsible for airport management and operations subject to FAA oversight and federal obligations. So why are we not able to ban an airline from the airport? Decisions about airline certification, safety, and ability to operate at commercial airports are exclusively the purview of the DOT and the FAA. Airport sponsors cannot exclude an airline based on factors such as political disagreement, corporate identity, or market competition. Any attempt to do so could result in enforcement action by the FAA, including the loss of federal funding and legal liability. And then the constraints that apply to the Eugene Airport related to banning an airline. The FAA airport sponsor grant assurances, which are conditions attached to federal airport funding regarding airport availability to commercial air carriers, states the airport will be available for public use on reasonable conditions without unjust discrimination. It also cites grant assurance number 22, economic non-discrimination, which mandates those airports receiving federal funds, quote, will make the airport available as an airport for public use on reasonable terms without unjust discrimination to all types, kinds, and classes of aeronautical activities, including commercial aeronautical activities offering services to the public at the airport. Any questions?
Committee members, any questions? Brittany?
Yeah. Thanks. I'm curious, when you had that presentation to council, for those who maybe weren't there, or didn't see it, can you share at all any of the conversation that came out of it, or just like more broadly from the city? If folks weren't following that conversation with council, they might not know kind of where that landed.
Yeah, Brittany, thanks for that. I believe that mayor and council have heard some public comment on this issue, but I believe it was the information that I just read to you that was given to mayor and council so that they would have the information, the talking points. I don't think there was an actual presentation. I did not present it to them yet.
Any other questions or comments? Eric?
So I think we should at least discuss the possibility of the committee authoring and putting forward a statement somewhat along the lines of what's been suggested by our speakers. Suggested by the speakers who spoke, the people that spoke today.
Okay, how does the committee feel about that?
And I'll just remind y'all that you are advisory to the Public Works Director.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with Catherine's statement. That should be what we put out.
Agreed as well.
Okay, so then if individuals were interested, go ahead, Eric.
And I'm not suggesting that the law is incorrect or what Catherine said was incorrect. I'm appealing to you from a sense of the injustice of what is happening. That's what I'm talking about. We can do that. We can, as a body, write a statement. We can request that the city council make a statement about the injustice here because it is unjust. It is inhumane. It is wrong. And I know it might be legal and I know the Supreme Court might approve it and so forth, but that doesn't make it right. It is chaotic. It is terrifying for the people that are being subjected to this. And I just think it's worth our consideration. And if you don't, of course, it's up to the committee and I certainly understand that. But I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, I guess just trying to consider, again, back to Catherine's point about this body, it's different than other boards and commissions, if you will, within the city of Eugene, right? Where some other boards and commissions are advisory to council. Perhaps I think it's important to clarify this body being advisory to the Public Works Director, et cetera. So to me, it feels like the technical and like proper place is to that statement would come from council, in my opinion. And so it just feels like allowing the body that is at the appropriate level to represent a comment like that is the appropriate place for it to go and be, because otherwise I do think that there's I'm concerned about sort of precedent of this group not following the charter of what we're expected to do and be. Whether we agree with it or not, I think is a whole nother thing, because I agree with Eric, like there's moral statements that I think folks maybe individually could absolutely make. But to me, it feels like the proper technical route is for council to make that statement, and maybe our encouragement for folks to reach out to council to play the role that I think is more appropriate for them to play in this situation. So anyways, that's my thought on that.
Thank you, Brittany. Is everybody in agreement with that? Okay, thank you. And thanks for bringing it up. Okay, I'll turn it over to you for the director's report then.
Okay, thank you so much, Natalie. And we'll move to the May activity report.
Thank you, Catherine. So on your screen here, you'll see the activity report for May. You can see the comparisons between this year, 2025, and last year. So overall, our total operations at the airport were up by 8%. Air carrier landings up 11%. But then you can see a continuation of what we see in the market as a whole, not just in Eugene, a kind of a softening or flatness of travel. So 3% down for the month overall, for the year, 2% down. And then you see those load factors at 10% down. So we're seeing kind of increased carrier landings, but decreased load factors due to that softening. You can also see the market shares for our airline partners, United and Alaska, both sitting at 26%. Southwest coming behind at 18%, and then the rest of the airlines, you can see where they land. So, but predominantly United and Alaska are over half of all market share here at UUG. These air cargo numbers, the last couple of months, they've been significantly down. We've come to find out there's a glitch in the reporting system for UPS and their flights here. So we're working to get that sorted out. So I wouldn't actually look at these numbers, and we'll have updated numbers for you once we figure it out. They're reporting 0 operations every month, and that's just not happening. They're here every day. So that number you can kind of ignore. Here's looking ahead to June. Things looking a little better here. We're seeing an increase in departures and seat capacity, pretty significant actually as we go into the summer. So that's a good sign. And continuing into October, we're seeing that. We're also starting to see flights added for some of the Big Ten football games. So great to see that. They're really thinking ahead. They saw kind of what happened last season, the first season of the Big Ten, and it was good. The airlines really saw that, hey, this is a real thing, and they're recognizing they need to add service to Eugene. And here we have our load factor comparisons with Eugene highlighted there. I really like to compare to Redmond and Medford, which sit towards the bottom of this list. So you can see that employment change, that softening we've been talking about. Our load factors are still strong. We're actually up 1%, pretty stable there. When we look at our general aviation community, so on the left there, we have our local or aircraft that are based here in Eugene, and then on the right are itinerant or people who are coming from out of the area. On both, you can see Eugene on the left there. Year over year, we're seeing a pretty healthy increase in the GA community utilizing EUG. And then you can see where we compare to Medford, Redmond, and Boise. And then I'll pause there. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I just realized I've been misinterpreting some of the things that you've been saying. I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification. So when you talk about departure and seat capacity improving in June, or in coming months, so how far ahead? I mean, is that based on what the airlines have said they're planning to do in the short term?
So airlines publish their schedules ahead of time. Each airline does it slightly different, but we're already looking into the fall. And so what we can do is we can take a look at what they've published. It'll show us aircraft type, number of seats, number of departures, destinations.
So how far ahead do you get that information? I mean, how far out, I should say?
It really depends on the airline. But for most of them, we can get them 3 to 6 months, well, more than 3, probably more like 6 months. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to Stephanie for the financial report.
Okay. So in the packet that was emailed to you, you should see an expanded copy of this summary that's on the screen right now, detailing out operating revenues as well as materials and supplies that were requested in May 2025's meeting. We have also on this slide here, we pulled out fire and police expenses for greater visibility, and those will remain visible moving forward on this slide deck. For operating revenues, we're currently sitting at 13% above budget and trending at 10% above fiscal year 24 year-to-date numbers. Operating expenses are 9% below budget and 1% above fiscal year 24 year-to-date numbers. This is due to non-represented employee salary adjustments that occurred in June of 23 and vacant positions that have been filled. Materials and services were under budget, but in line with prior year actuals. Mild winters have not had, we had a mild winter, so we have not had to purchase sand and different things as much as we have in, like, say, last January. So that has led to some expense being less for materials and supplies. Fire costs are 15% below budget. This is due to budgeting at a higher ARF index and then us being able to come back down an ARF index. ARF being the airport, what's the R? Rescue and firefighting. There we go. So we'll probably see that go back and forth for a couple years before we kind of end up finding our home where we're going to be sitting with that index. And then capital, we purchased 2 Toyota Tacomas, a utility trailer, metal detector, 0-turn mowers, herbicide tank replacement, and some radios. There are a couple other purchases that are underway for some equipment that has failed that we have to replace. So we'll see that coming in on this next month's report for June. We are also sitting at 6.1 million in operating balance right now. For the revenues chart, May 2025 revenues for the month are above that of May last year in 2024. And as compared to April 25, revenues in May are also slightly lower. For expenses, expenses are lower in May 25 as compared to May 24, and expenses for May 25 are slightly higher than they were for April 2025. This would have been because of some of those purchases that we discussed. For cumulative net gain without release grants, we can see that we're kind of breaking away this year. We show a net gain of over $500,000 compared to last month and 1.8 million as compared to where we were in May 2024. As a reminder, this increase includes the airline reconciliation revenues that we received in March 2025, and we will be receiving additional airline reconciliation revenues that will be received in July 2025. Any questions?
Oh, I guess, can you sort of explain when we see numbers lower than expected on your report and then revenues higher than expected, like just for folks who aren't seeing that line items for us, can you explain a little bit about like why that difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So operating revenues are much more than just funds coming in from airlines. So we have parking revenues, which could be anything from people just coming in to pick up passengers, people flying out, being gone for long periods of time. So we see that as one of our big revenue sources. We also have the general aviation community that has revenue sources that we receive through hangar rentals and things like that. Advertising, we have security and concessions agreements that we get some revenues from, charter, air cargo, all of those things. So just because load factors might be down doesn't mean that revenues would exactly follow the same path. So any other questions? Yeah, they don't have anything. So the sheet that you got in your packets, there's like an kind of a peachy colored section that does split out the revenues, so you'll be able to see that. It makes it too small to be able to read on the slides, so we weren't able to include it in the slides, but you do have that in your packet. For materials and services, it's also broken out and including the ISF that we had talked about, showing you guys and breaking out, so you can see that. We're kind of showing as far as compared to last year to date, for revenues, we have probably the greatest increase is airline revenues were up 23%. That would be because of, again, that reconciliation settlement that we did. in March, and then we will see more of that in July. We are also up on charters, 91% over last year. So we've had more charter. So that would be like the sports charters and that kind of stuff, not charters like air cargo charters. So we see that has increased as well. And then I do show that air cargo is down by 18% for revenues. So that was our big one that was down. Advertising is also up significantly. It's 87% up. Materials and supplies. Let's see. Maintenance, we're down 24%. So anything for building maintenance or facility maintenance, that's down significantly this year, which we have tried to mitigate that a lot. So I'm glad to see that we were able to do that and kind of hold back on going and spending more than we really needed to. We've had a couple people in the group, some new employees that have really gone in and looked at our equipment and maintained it and found different ways that we can do some cost savings there. So I think that's really helped. And then we are also 13% down on our contracts. So that would be, for instance, like the escalator contracts for maintenance or, the elevator. We have various contracts. Those have been down, and we've been taking a look at those contracts and seeing where we can kind of shore things up as well. So we've been doing a lot of work with that kind of stuff. So you'll see that on this expanded report. Is there something else you wanted me to speak to, Catherine, in particular?
Anybody had questions? So I know this is something you'd asked for at our last meeting, as a more detailed finance report, including the CSA and the IFS. I know we may not be able to answer all the questions in the detail of that. And so if you did have questions on that, I think Natalie may have a suggestion.
Yes, we were wondering if it would be of interest to do a finance committee to dig into this a little more. Is there anybody who might be interested in serving on something like that and maybe even sharing it?
Love me a good finance committee. Do it. I won't share it. We'll make Mike do it.
Okay.
But I'll serve on
Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, we have 3 people. And if anybody else, so I'm not exactly sure how we go about proceeding with that. Okay, so could we get a motion to establish a finance committee?
I will make a motion that we establish a finance committee for the Eugene Airport.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, we have a finance committee. Can I just assign that, or can we just, do we need to do anything formal in terms of?
You can
establishing
do
a
it
chair?
offline. You can assign, as the
Okay.
chair of the AAC, you can assign a chair to the committee. And then I think we would look for an alternative meeting time so that we could have representations from the Public Works Director and the Central Finance folks.
Okay, so that's how we will move forward. So you'll be hearing from me formalizing it. You'll get an email from me formalizing it, and then we can move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for those who have offered to serve.
Right, great. Thank you, Stephanie. And we will move on to the legislative and regulatory update. I don't really have new information for you. I know Mariah and Kiawe are going to give an overview of our project updates. So as you may have seen, we've seen some media attention around the impact of the federal grant situation that we're in and not able to obtain federal grant money at this point in time. I can tell you that there's, work being done to see how that might be addressed. But in the meantime, just as a reminder, we have had to postpone the A Concourse expansion. We have postponed the Net Zero Energy Project. We are moving forward with the Concourse A asphalt apron, which is, I opened the blinds so you could see the progress. It just started a couple days ago. And then we will also be moving forward with the 34 Right drainage project. Both the apron project and the drainage project we deemed critical just for operational safety to be able to make sure we're maintaining our certification. So with that, I think unless you had specific questions about legislative or regulatory issues, we'll move on to Brittany. That's good.
This might not be the right spot to ask this, and maybe this is something the finance committee can dive into, but I'm just curious if the city has initiated any backup plans given this situation with the federal funding, like if there's any discussions about going back to the council with capital improvement plan readjustments. I don't know. I just didn't know if there was any additional conversations about how we might move these things forward in the future, or if that's at all on the radar.
Well, as you can imagine, staff, we've been working through this very meticulously because there are some points in time where we need to have a couple of projects to maintain our certification. And so we're really looking strategically at, how we may be able to do some things differently on our capital improvement program list, but there will be a lot of things that are just put on hold until we can figure this out. So I can tell you a couple of key points in time is in 2027, we have a Bravo taxiway system rehab that may or may not have a year or two of wiggle room to it. But if that were not to happen, then in theory, we might have to shut down that side of the airfield. And then in 2030, there is the rehabilitation of the primary runway. And I can tell you right now that cannot be pushed. So those are really big ticket items. Both of those would normally be paid for through both entitlement funds and discretionary money. I can't imagine that we've ever actually paid for one of those ourselves before. I mean, other than our local match. So there is, further work with our airport financial advisor and Public Works and Central Finance to figure out how we might self-fund those as well, whether it's through a bond process or state emergency funding or something like that. But those are just all things that we're looking at. Nothing is shored up yet on that. Right. If there's no further questions, then we'll move on to project updates.
All right, ready to roll. Well, as Catherine just described, Concourse A expansion has been put on hold. We've got everything pretty much shelf ready, as we would call it. All the design has been wrapped up, and now we just need to wait for the proper moment where we have the right funding and the right time to actually execute. All right, so this is one of the two main projects that's going to be happening this summer that was expected to get federal funding and that we're still moving forward with, mainly because we're trying to mitigate as much attraction to wildlife to the airport as we can, and this is a big attractant. Having a big pond of water that sits for months on end drags in a lot of birds. So trying our best to mitigate that. As far as the status of this project, we have wrapped up design. We have wrapped up the bidding process. We have a contractor on hand. Right now, our engineers are reviewing all the submittals to make sure that all materials that are coming in and all the parts that are going to be used are accurate and the things that we want. Expected to start construction sometime early in September. We've received all the permits that we need for the work. At this point, we're just waiting on what we would call our long lead items. So a lot of these items like the pumps, and parts of the wet well that are taking a very long time to manufacture and deliver. This has unfortunately been kind of a nationwide problem for a lot of materials and resources getting things delivered on time. So a lot of projects, including ours, are pushed a little back from what we expected because of these issues. All that to be said is everything so far as design, as far as bidding, has gone off without a hitch, and we're just waiting till September when we can actually build. All right, asphalt rehab. So that's the project that's going on right now. It started on Monday. So far, everything has been mostly pretty boring, which is good. That's how we want it. All of Monday has been setting up phase 1 and phase 2. So you'll see that the project is broken up into multiple phases in this image that we've been throwing at everybody. We decided that in order to save time and money, we were able to combine phase 1 and phase 2 happening at the same time, which is why you might see multiple sections or areas out in the airfield that are kind of being blocked off and being worked on right now. The big work that's happening right now are the drainage structures. So a lot of work today is going to be setting up those barricades, making sure the areas are all tight and the airlines know how to get in and out. And then from there, we're doing a lot of excavating, a lot of digging to expose the existing structures that we have to remove. And then we'll bring in concrete trucks and pour in place new structures in place before we come through and start ripping up the ground and repaving everything. So right now it's a lot of work on our manholes before we can work on the surface itself. That's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. All right, Old Car Wash. So we are just finally wrapping up design for this project. There's been some changes here and there as we upgrade and decide what we want to be doing with this area. Eventually, we've hit a point where we should be getting 100% plans first thing Friday morning. And then with that, we'll be able to give it to the people with purchasing and we'll be able to advertise Friday afternoon. From there, we expect about 4 to 6 weeks before we have a contractor on hand who is signed up and ready to do the work. And then from there, we're shooting to start the project on August 18th. We're still humming and hawing over that start date, so that's not set in stone, but that seems to be the most ideal day for us to get the project work in while we have the right staff here, while we're not being slammed by football games, and also giving the contractors that we want to hire enough time to actually put together a decent construction schedule. So August 18th seems to be the goal for now, and we'll let people know when that changes. As I said, we're getting design by the end of the week. So by next week, we will be in the bidding phase, which will be sweet. Mariah, you want to come help me out with this one?
Hello. So another really fun, interesting project here is our outbound baggage expansion. This is not a construction project quite yet. We're right in design right now. So this will be design again right now, construction plan for next year. And again, as we're talking about some of these funding obstacles, we still need to work through that piece. But we do have a TSA grant that we're working with for design and construction. Again, design right now, construction is a plan for next summer. So the image on the left there is just kind of showing the actual system design, and then the images on the right, is more of an architectural view of what that would look like on the ground. Again, just highlighting ICS, and why we want to kind of talk about this specifically is ICS is individual carrier system compared to a conventional system. The airport was making a decision right about 30% design, what type of system we wanted to go with. We ended up choosing ICS after a few of us took a trip down to San Francisco and kind of saw the system, got to talk to the manufacturer and also San Francisco airport employees about the system and why they're choosing it. A big part of that is with their terminal expansions, they are going with this system instead of a conventional conveyor. So that was really interesting to learn. And then also just learning about the positives to the system, which we'll go to the next slide for that. So the images on the right, and apologize for their size, but that just kind of demonstrates what the system is. A big difference is that the bags are going into like individual totes instead of on just a conventional just conveyor. A big part about this is there's a lot of positives. So they're 5 times faster than a conventional belt system. They provide tracking. So as soon as that bag gets into that tote is tracked from start to finish. So you know where your bag is. A big part of this is our interest is with our Concourse C expansion in the coming years is being able to expand the system. And then also again, at that rate, they'll be going long distances, so tracking would be more important. What else on here? There's easier maintenance on the system and also less power draw, so we're going to be saving on energy efficiencies and just, again, maintenance of the equipment, so reducing the time and effort of airport staff once they're trained up on the system of maintaining it. You can run multiple tray sizes, so we can look at larger bags and also smaller bags. And then again, for high speed and throughput. So we're really excited about this kind of shift to this type of design. Again, some bigger airports are doing it, some other couple airports at our size, but we'll be excited to do it. I don't know if there's anything else from. Nope. Okay. Any questions on projects? Okay.
All right, thank you guys. Any project questions? I will note on the baggage system, we're bringing that to shovel ready status. We had to really explore that a little bit, but the main thing is the TSA grant that we have for the design. We have to bring the project to. We have to have RFP documents ready to go that are accepted by TSA to be able to obtain the full grant amount. And it was not impeded by not moving forward with the construction portion of that project at this time. So we breathe a big sigh of relief on that one. So we'll get that one to shovel ready. And whenever we work out this federal grant situation, we'll be able to move forward. I likely we won't hit the next summer construction period though. Right, Natalie, turn it back to you.
Then a security and emergency management update.
Hi, so we're going to talk about security today. All of the security at the airport is sensitive security information, so this is pretty high level, and we won't be talking about any specific procedures. So just wanted to put that out there, so if you had questions. We do have a basic kind of core security team. It's myself as the Assistant Director for Operations, Security, and Maintenance. I am also the Airport Security Coordinator. And we have a credentialing coordinator. So anybody that gets a badge out here has to go through our credentialing coordinator. We do background checks, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so there's the credentialing coordinator. Our operations duty officers do a lot of the checks and challenges that we'll talk about. Terminal staff do a lot of response to alarms, etc. But really anybody that is out here at the airport and has a badge has security responsibilities. They get trained on those responsibilities when they get their badge. And everybody really plays a pretty big role in our security. So we do have all of our guidance comes from the Transportation Security Administration. We do have both, they have two different branches. They have a regulatory branch and the screening branch. It is underneath the Code of Federal Regulations, 1542. We do have security directives. There are emergency directives that tell us specific procedures that we have to carry out if something happens, that they give us those. They're pretty broad. They give us a goal, and then the airport has to figure out how to do it. So a lot of that, every airport has the same guidance. Not every airport goes about meeting that goal in the same way. So we do have a airport security plan. It is written by us and approved by the TSA. So that does give a blueprint of our security at our airport and all of the procedures that we have to follow here. And then there's TSA inspectors. We get inspected every single year. They come and they spend at least a week here. They actually have 30 days. It's usually a week on site, but they will go through all of our paperwork, all of our reports, all of our inspections, all of our credentialing paperwork, everything. And then they do a ton of testing on us. So different kind of tests about getting into the airport, being able to piggyback, which means going through a door with somebody else that has a badge, et cetera. So a lot of testing that they do for us. And we do that every single year. And for the last 3 years, we have had 100% no findings for inspections. So good for us. We do within our security, we have to control it and we have to have response. So we have access control. So our badges that we have here, like I said, when you get from the credentialing office, they allow you access into the airport in the place where you have operational need to be. So just because you have a badge doesn't mean that you get to go every place at the airport. We do kind of keep the scope very small of where you need to be. But we also have to respond to any alarms that we get, whether that's a gate alarm, a door alarm, any of that, we have to respond to that, write up security incident reports, et cetera. We have to work in coordination with the Transportation Security Administration Operations Coordination Center. We call it the TOC. So anytime anything happens here, we have to call and communicate that to that entity. So we do that. We have CCTV all over the entire airport, inside, out, public, secured, every place. We do keep that a little bit tight to the vest of where those cameras are. Obviously, you can see most of them, especially out in the public area, but we have a lot of coverage over at the airport. And we do a lot of audits with our concessionaires to make sure that things that are coming into the airport are not a prohibited item that perhaps a passenger could get to take onto an airport or an airplane, excuse me. Within our security, we do patrols, we do inspections, we have mandatory inspections we have to do, we do random inspections, we have to do challenges, we do badge challenges. We have to just randomly ask people to see their badge, make sure that it's valid, unexpired, make sure it's your badge that you have, et cetera. And now we are currently doing aviation worker screening. So now we do random screening for all employees that come into the airport to come to work. So this is our credentialing office. This is Kimberly. She has, we take care of all, like I said, all the access badges. We have just instituted a new system. It's called Air Badge. So if you do get a badge out here at the airport, you're working through that process. It's super brand new for us. It is a good system. It keeps track of all kinds of stuff. We can do fingerprinting through it, all the background checks. It tracks it. We can do training through it, everything. We are still learning what it can do and how we can manipulate it. So it's been a learning experience. Unfortunately, Kimberly has been out for the last couple of weeks. She's going to be out for a few more weeks. So those of us filling in, especially if you get a badge, please be patient with us. We have about 1,500 badges out here at the airport. We have yearly renewal so that we can keep a better track of our badges so that we don't have a higher loss rate. So if somebody chooses not to tell us that they don't need their badge and they don't return it, then we can keep track of that. We have signatories. A signatory is a representative for a company that basically works with Kimberly and our office to basically tell us who needs a badge for your company, who doesn't need a badge for your company. And works with that to get the training done. And we work with those folks to do audits. We audit badges, we audit keys, we audit all access to the airport. We do have our little educational program. It's called BEES. It's Building Effective EUG Security. It really is just our badge holder rules and regulations. It lists all of that. They're required. We have to have rules out here for access and how you work and how you do things out here. It's a lot of education. And unfortunately, there does have to be consequences associated with that because when people break the rules, it is a pretty big deal out at the airport. We are a secure environment. So there are some consequences associated with those programs and rules. Excuse me. We do have law enforcement out here. I'm also the liaison for all of our LEOs. We do have 24-hour coverage. We have a Eugene Police Department out here. And we have 6 officers that are assigned to the airport full time. And then we have currently on that 6-member team, we do have 2 officers that are also on the explosive detection unit. And we have 2 officers that are on the SWAT team as well. So, but they're stationed out here and they rotate through, but we do have 24-hour coverage. So we always have an officer on duty. Anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, on the police and fire, are those fully funded from the airport or is it like partial funding, split position?
Fully funded. When I will say the folks that are on, just to clarify that a little bit, the folks that are on the SWAT team and the bomb unit, so if they get called out specifically for those are paid through their funding, not airport funding.
Any other questions? And if I could just add in here, so Tammy is really an expert in aviation security, and she's had visits, I think, either visits or helped all of the other smaller commercial service airports in the state develop their security plans. Also the emergency plan where North Bend just had an incident out there. We provided some assistance to them as well. So I just want to give kudos to Tammy. She really knows what she's doing. She's set the tone for others in our state for sure, and is a resource to many across the country.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, with that, it is the time for open discussion or comments from the committee. Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.